Dinar shift. The conversation around the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong in 2025 is more than just a passing fascination with two emerging market currencies. It is a profound lesson in global economics, financial stability, and the complex nature of national transformation. Before we delve into the specific developments concerning Iraq and Vietnam, it is vital to establish a clear framework. A currency's value is not determined by hopeful speculation or sudden, secret declarations, but by the tangible, measurable fundamentals of a country's economy. Understanding this principle is the core advantage that separates informed observation from mere wishful thinking in the currency markets. It provides the clarity and confidence required to accurately assess the current landscape and avoid the disappointment that often follows unverified rumors. The global currency market in 2025 presents a dynamic and intricately connected landscape, constantly reshaped by major economic currents that span the entire world. Central banks are navigating a period marked by shifting interest rate policies, the formation of new international trade blocs, and an ongoing recalibration of global supply chains following years of economic volatility. These vast systemic forces dictate the movement of every major and minor currency, from the euro to the yen, and equally impact the dinar and the dong. To isolate Iraq or Vietnam from this larger context is to misunderstand the very forces that create value, demonstrating why every serious conversation about these specific currencies must begin with an acknowledgement of the overarching global economic environment and the confidence international capital places in each nation's long-term stability. Focusing our lens now on the Iraqi dinar, we observe a currency intrinsically tied to a nation grappling with the immense task of transitioning its economy while holding colossal potential in its grasp. Iraq is a country rich in resources, yet simultaneously contending with deep-seated structural challenges that are the result of decades of conflict and instability. This unique duality creates a cautious but undeniable sense of hope among those watching the dinar. The Central Bank of Iraq continues its methodical, long-term mission to foster robust financial stability, a process that involves modernizing the country's legacy banking sector, enhancing fiscal transparency, and working to mitigate inflationary pressures that can erode the dinar's purchasing power, a primary pillar of the dinar's stability, and indeed the entire Iraqi economy, remains its revenue generated from the sale of oil. The commodity market's fluctuations are directly translated into the country's financial outlook. Strong global oil prices bolster government revenue, lead to an accumulation of foreign currency reserves, and generally increase international confidence in Iraq's long-term prospects. Conversely, any sustained drop in oil prices exerts significant pressure on the government's budget and its ability to fund national projects and essential services. In the current 2025 market, oil prices have offered a measure of support, but they also underscore the urgent need for Iraq to strategically execute its plans for genuine economic diversification away from its near-total reliance on hydrocarbon exports. The fundamental reason the Iraqi dinar does not exhibit dramatic, sudden appreciation, a phenomenon often hoped for, is that currency movements are a reflection of economic reality, not speculative demand. A lasting and meaningful increase in a currency's strength can only be built upon a foundation of sustained fiscal discipline and gradual, structural reform. Iraq is actively undertaking improvements, particularly in its banking and financial governance systems, but building a fully modernized, resilient financial sector capable of supporting a world-class currency is an endeavor that demands consistency, patience, and a long timeline. It is a marathon of national development, not a sprint toward a momentary exchange rate adjustment. Shifting our gaze to Southeast Asia, the Vietnamese Dong operates within a fundamentally different but equally compelling economic narrative in 2025. Vietnam remains a powerhouse of growth, consistently cited as one of the region's fastest expanding economies, propelled by a vigorous manufacturing sector, surging exports, significant technological advancement, and a stable inflow of foreign direct investment. This robust, export-oriented economic engine provides the Dong with a degree of inherent stability and backing that is often absent in more volatile emerging currencies, giving it a strong position in the global trading environment. However, even a hyper-forming economy like Vietnam's faces its own set of sophisticated challenges that directly influence the Dong's behavior on the international stage. These challenges include managing persistent inflationary pressures, navigating the complexities of shifts in global shipping and logistics, and maintaining its competitive edge against other rapidly developing markets in the region. The exchange rate of the dong, like all currencies, is therefore adjusted and guided by these complex, interacting factors rather than by arbitrary or clandestine high-level decisions, demonstrating that even a strong currency is never immune to the gravitational pull of economic laws. What makes the Vietnamese dong a subject of careful study in 2025 is the deliberate balance maintained by its central monetary authority. They manage a monetary policy that is controlled and stable, designed to promote continued sustainable growth, while the rising global demand for Vietnamese manufactured goods continuously creates upward pressure on the currency. While increased exports generally strengthen a currency because foreign buyers need to acquire it, the government often elects to manage the exchange rate carefully to prevent sudden, dramatic appreciation that could undermine the competitiveness of its exports, thereby supporting a long-term trade advantage. The reality of the dong's trajectory is one of methodical, gradual strengthening and careful management, which stands in stark contrast to the often circulated hopes for instant, massive revaluation. People are naturally inclined to wish for an overnight jump in value, but real-world global economics demonstrates that steady, predictable performance is far more common, more realistic, and ultimately healthier for a national economy than speculative, sudden shocks. A deep understanding of this principle allows observers to correctly filter the torrent of online rumors and ground their expectations in the demonstrable realities of economic policy. One of the most persistent and emotionally charged questions in the currency community revolves around why intense rumors of major revaluations or RV events seem to proliferate year after year without materializing. The simple yet powerful answer lies in the human desire for a quick fix or a miracle financial solution. When faced with general economic uncertainty or personal financial struggles, the compelling idea of a lesser-known currency suddenly becoming a valuable asset provides a powerful, alluring, and immediate sense of hope. However, economic systems are simply not engineered for such instantaneous transformation. Large, overnight currency revaluations are historically rare and usually occur only after catastrophic economic or political shifts, not as part of a routine or desired monetary policy. Currencies like the dinar and the dong primarily move through calculated, gradual adjustments that are a direct result of changes in a country's interest rates, its inflation profile, the success of internal governmental reforms, and the shifting dynamics of global supply chains. In an era where digital communication allows speculation to travel the world faster than vetted data, the noise of rumor can easily drown out the measured tone of factual reporting. It is precisely because of this overwhelming flow of unverified digital information that educational platforms focusing on factual, sober analysis become critical. The goal is to provide insight into what is genuinely practical, what is structurally real, and what can actually be expected to impact the long-term strength of these currencies. Hope and aspiration are powerful human forces, but in the realm of finance, they must be consistently supported by comprehensive understanding, rather than being fueled by pure, unbridled excitement or fantasy. This balanced perspective empowers individuals to navigate the landscape and make far more intelligent decisions for their financial future. Returning to the ongoing narrative of the Iraqi dinar, the year 2025 represents a meaningful stage in its financial evolution. The central bank remains deeply engaged in initiatives designed to reinforce the currency's stability, including the comprehensive digitization of the banking system, the implementation of more robust anti-corruption and anti-money laundering frameworks, and the strengthening of real-time monitoring for all currency transactions. These technical and systemic improvements are not merely administrative tasks, they are essential structural changes that form a concrete foundation for any future appreciation of the dinar. The most significant and lasting gains in currency value are consistently observed in nations that successfully manage to modernize their economy, diversify their revenue streams, and tangibly increase their standing in the global investor community. Iraq's approach to achieving this necessary confidence has been deliberate and measured, characterized by a persistent focus on enhancing the efficiency of its oil production, strategically brokering new international trade agreements and taking measured steps to successfully attract large-scale international companies to its non-oil sectors. When analysts and observers evaluate the potential for the dinar to eventually strengthen, the responsible and factual conclusion is that its prospects are directly and entirely dependent on the continued, uninterrupted execution of these internal reforms. The encouraging news remains that the reforms are demonstrably underway. However, it must be reiterated that any national economic transformation of this scale, the shift from a cash-based, oil-dependent economy to a modern, diversified financial power, requires a sustained degree of consistency, unwavering political commitment, and a patient, long-term outlook from all stakeholders. The dynamic situation in Vietnam also continues to evolve significantly throughout 2025. The trend of major international manufacturing and technology companies strategically relocating their production bases to Vietnam persists, driven by factors such as cost efficiency, a growing pool of skilled labor, and a relatively stable political environment. This continued influx of foreign direct investment inherently brings a steady flow of foreign currency into the nation, which in turn acts as a powerful support mechanism for the long-term outlook of the Vietnamese Dong. In parallel with this external investment, the State Bank of Vietnam maintains a vigilant watch over key domestic financial indicators, particularly inflation and local interest rates. The decisions made regarding these critical policy levers directly influence the Dong's movement and behavior within the global exchange markets. Economic history demonstrates that countries successfully maintaining low, controlled inflation combined with a strong, diverse export performance are the ones most likely to possess stable and resilient currencies, a profile that Vietnam consistently seeks to uphold. However, this commitment to stability is fundamentally at odds with the desire for rapid, speculative currency jumps. The Vietnamese strategy is built on the premise of gradual, controlled adjustments and predictable movement, which is why most reputable economists classify the Dong as a stable, growth-backed currency rather than a volatile, speculative instrument. As the nation's economy continues its robust expansion through verifiable, real-world production and the implementation of sound monetary policy, the level of confidence shown by international markets in the Dong only solidifies, confirming the efficacy of its slow but exceptionally healthy developmental path. A key factor that cannot be overlooked in the analysis of both the Iraqi Dinar and the Vietnamese Dong is the overwhelming, pervasive influence of the US dollar. The dollar remains the undisputed heavyweight of the global financial system, serving as the benchmark currency for most international trade, the primary denomination for oil pricing worldwide, and the foundation of global central banking reserves. When the dollar experiences a period of prolonged strength, emerging market currencies like the dinar and the dong frequently feel a corresponding downward pressure on their exchange rates. Conversely, a period of dollar weakness can create a greater window of opportunity for emerging currencies to appreciate. In 2025, the dollar has been subject to its own significant fluctuations, driven by shifts in the U.S. Federal Reserve's interest rate strategy, evolving U.S. domestic economic policies, and general uncertainties within the global market. These powerful movements ripple across the world's exchange rates. Therefore, when observers question why the dinar or the dong have not appreciated dramatically, the enduring strength of the U.S. dollar and its dominant position is often one of the most significant overarching reasons. This understanding of the dollar's integral role is essential for forming a complete, accurate picture of the global financial matrix. No currency operates in true isolation. The world's financial systems are deeply interdependent, and any major shift in the value or policy of one dominant currency inevitably influences the exchange rates of dozens of others. Recognizing this interconnectedness allows the public to move beyond simplistic, localized explanations and fully appreciate the complex, multi-layered pressures that constantly shape the values of currencies like the dinar and the dong. Let us now take a moment to specifically discuss inflation, as it represents one of the most critical forces that determines the inherent strength of any national currency. In straightforward economic terms, when a country experiences high, uncontrolled inflation, the value and purchasing power of its currency are rapidly eroded. Conversely, when inflation is successfully kept low and is managed within predictable parameters, the currency becomes significantly more stable and, consequently, more appealing to international investors and global capital. Iraq's ongoing efforts include dedicated work to moderate its inflation rate, with the express aim of maintaining and supporting the foundational stability of the dinar. Similarly, Vietnam's central bank places a high priority on closely monitoring and controlling inflation to ensure a healthy, sustainable balance between its ambitious economic growth targets and the necessity of price stability. In 2025, many economies are still in the process of fully adjusting following the widespread global inflation wave that affected virtually every nation in recent years. While some currencies are recovering their stability more quickly than others, the general inflation trends for both the dinar and the dong show continuous improvement, indicating a positive and ongoing process. It must be clearly understood that this lower inflation is not an engine for sudden, sharp spikes in exchange rates. Instead, it serves the far more crucial function of laying a bedrock of fundamental strength that will sustain the currency's value over the long term. This is perhaps the most vital lesson for anyone holding or interested in these currencies. Real, lasting value is derived from verifiable economic fundamentals, not from fleeting dramatic news announcements. A highly relevant development in 2025 is the relentless acceleration of digital transformation within the global financial world. An increasing number of nations are aggressively developing and implementing sophisticated digital banking ecosystems, secure online payment platforms, and highly efficient electronic transaction networks. Iraq, as part of its overarching reform agenda, has been heavily focused on modernizing its foundational financial infrastructure, a move that significantly enhances both transparency and operational efficiency within the system. This push for modernization is absolutely crucial because global investors place enormous importance on the ease, security, and safety of moving capital both into and out of a country. When a nation successfully upgrades its technological framework and enhances its financial accessibility, the confidence of international capital rises, which in turn acts as a long-term support for its currency's value. Vietnam, which already possesses a more advanced digital banking environment, continues this process by broadening its offering of secure online financial services. Digital transformation, much like inflation control, is not an event that will trigger a dramatic, sudden revaluation of the exchange rate. Instead, its true value lies in strengthening the long-term credibility and operational efficiency of the currency. It is a key enabler that helps countries seamlessly integrate into the highly competitive global markets, successfully attract greater foreign investment, and significantly improve their standing and image among the most influential international financial institutions. All these elements contribute cumulatively to the slow but steady long-term trajectory of both the dinar and the dong. Another common area of misunderstanding for the public is the actual role and mandate of national central banks in managing exchange rates. Central banks are fundamentally opposed to extreme, destabilizing volatility in their currency. Their primary goal is to maintain predictable, controlled currency behavior that robustly supports the nation's international trade, actively prevents financial panic in the markets, and reliably encourages long-term domestic and foreign investment. The central banks of both Iraq and Vietnam have consistently emphasized stability as their paramount priority. This policy preference for stability means that neither country is actively seeking or planning for a sudden, dramatic jump in its currency's value. While a quick appreciation may sound momentarily exciting, such abrupt moves are known to cause significant damage to the domestic economy, severely disrupt established trade flows, and can trigger dangerous and inflationary price shocks. Therefore, any speculation or claim that a currency will suddenly soar overnight runs directly contrary to the stated, measured, and cautious operational strategies of central banks worldwide. Demonstrating why stability, and not dramatic upheaval, is the central guiding objective. As we progress through 2025, it is clear that global investors are progressively dedicating more attention and capital to emerging markets that demonstrate strong potential, a category that includes both Iraq and Vietnam. Countries characterized by younger, growing populations an increasing capacity for industrial production, and actively improving financial systems are naturally attractive destinations for large-scale foreign investment. This capital inflow plays a pivotal role in stabilizing currencies and bolstering the overall confidence of the international community. Vietnam has cemented its reputation as a premier global destination for foreign-backed manufacturing plants and major technology firms, while Iraq, with its unparalleled energy resources and strategic geopolitical location, is in the careful process of methodically rebuilding essential investor trust. These long-term directional trends are vital for a sustained increase in currency strength. However, it must be noted that serious investors fundamentally prefer financial environments that are stable, predictable, and transparent, which underscores the necessity for both nations to continue their systemic improvements before significant, non-speculative currency appreciation can be realized. It is necessary to address the profound emotional dimension that underpins many currency discussions. A significant number of individuals holding the dinar or the dong are doing so out of a deep-seated hope for transformative financial opportunities, aspiring to create a better future for their families. This powerful desire is completely understandable, but it must be critically balanced with verifiable knowledge. When financial decisions are based entirely on circulating rumors, the primary risk is one of profound disappointment, whereas consulting real-world economic trends leads to better, informed, and more practical choices. In the contemporary information landscape of 2025, the volume of unverified speculation and misinformation circulating online is at an all-time high, with posts, videos, and messages spreading rapidly without any substantive vetting. This reality makes the role of truthful, honest, and rigorous analysis more essential than ever before. The objective is not to extinguish hope, but to temper it with information, ensuring that hope is meaningfully supported by a clear, factual understanding of the economic landscape, rather than by confusing or unrealistic expectations. A critical point to continuously highlight is the true duration required for a nation to fully transform its foundational economy. Iraq is in the complex and prolonged process of rebuilding, recovering from decades of political instability, various conflicts, and deep structural vulnerabilities. Systemic reform of its banking sector, the establishment of effective anti-corruption mechanisms, the expansion of private sector employment, and the successful stabilization of currency markets are all time-consuming, generational projects. Vietnam, while being far more economically advanced, must still contend with the ongoing management of its massive foreign investment, the continuous imperative to upgrade its national infrastructure, and the necessity of maintaining competitiveness against its fast-growing regional peers. Both nations are navigating vast, interconnected developmental journeys that exert a daily influence on their respective currencies. These are journeys measured not in the immediacy of days or weeks, but in the long, steady measure of years, a profound reality that necessitates a high degree of patience and a grounded perspective from all currency holders. Let us further explore the critical role of global trade, which acts as one of the most powerful determinants of a currency's inherent value. Iraq's stated goal is to achieve significant diversification of its trade relationships, moving deliberately beyond its singular reliance on oil exports. The year 2025 continues to show measured, incremental progress in vital non-oil sectors such as agriculture, specialized construction, and transportation logistics. As Iraq successfully reduces its deep dependency on oil revenue, its broader economy naturally gains in structural stability, which provides a long-term benefit and support for the dinar. Vietnam, by stark contrast, is already a dominant global exporter of high-value goods, including electronics, textiles, advanced machinery, and diverse agricultural products, supported by an expansive trade network spanning continents. When a country consistently exports more goods than it imports, foreign commercial buyers must acquire the national currency, which organically increases its demand and contributes to a gradual strengthening. This trade-led momentum is about building long-term, verifiable economic value, not generating instant, fleeting wealth, a clear distinction that every informed currency holder must appreciate. The specific banking reforms currently underway in Iraq are of paramount importance for the future stability and trajectory of the dinar. Iraq is intensely focused on reducing unauthorized currency trading activities, significantly enhancing its full compliance with rigorous international financial standards, and reinforcing its comprehensive anti-money laundering protocols. These crucial reforms serve to significantly increase the international trustworthiness of the entire Iraqi financial system. When a nation's financial system is viewed with greater respect and confidence by major global banks and financial institutions, its currency naturally gains an international standing. This elevated respect is the very foundation upon which any long-term appreciation must be built, a process that is, by its nature, deliberate and unhurried. For those who hold the dinar in 2025, understanding the substance of these systemic, necessary reforms is far more valuable and predictive than simply tracking the latest speculative rumor. True, verifiable change begins with genuine structural improvements, and those are being implemented one determined step at a time. Vietnam is also continuously engaged in strengthening and refining its already advanced financial sector. In 2025, the country is actively working to further expand its digital payment infrastructure, increase robust government oversight of its financial institutions, and solidify the legal framework governing foreign investment. These proactive steps are designed to firmly maintain the long-term stability and resilience of the dong. A highly stable currency is a magnet for serious international investors because it drastically reduces the element of financial risk. Vietnam's recognized economic success is a testament to its consistent long-term policy approach year after year, choosing to prioritize sustainable, enduring growth over any form of quick, temporary fixes. This is precisely why a large consensus of international analysts regard Vietnam as one of Asia's most fundamentally strong and well-managed emerging markets. Once again, this does not imply any expectation of sudden, dramatic jumps in the exchange rate, but rather a slow, healthy, and predictable development that is the most reliable foundation for long-term currency strength. Ultimately, the most essential lesson to absorb from the complex world of global currencies is that while rumors are undeniably fast and alluring, economic fundamentals are exponentially stronger and more enduring. A rumor can propagate across the internet in a matter of seconds, yet it possesses no actual power to fundamentally change a currency's intrinsic value. The true determinants of a currency's value are its underlying economic strength, the quality and consistency of its government's policies, the success of its inflation control measures, the volume of sustained foreign investment, and the consistent health of its national trade balance. As we look toward the remainder of 2025, both Iraq and Vietnam are actively demonstrating measurable, verifiable progress in all these crucial areas. The dinar and the dong certainly possess significant long-term potential, but that potential is realized only through decisive, real-world action and structural development, not through the anticipation of secret, instantaneous decisions. When individuals commit to understanding this core principle, they naturally evolve into more sophisticated, smarter observers, recognizing that factual knowledge is the only path to genuine, quiet confidence, far removed from the excitement and emotional churn of speculation. The year 2025 brings with it continued global economic uncertainty, which will invariably impact currencies across the spectrum. Shifts in the major world interest rates, sudden disruptions within the global energy markets, and changes in international trade agreements all exert a constant, unavoidable influence on emerging market currencies. Neither Iraq nor Vietnam is completely isolated from the pervasive impact of these large-scale global forces. When the worldwide economy experiences a slowdown, the majority of currencies feel the strain, and when global growth accelerates, emerging markets are poised to gain strength, a predictable and recurring historical cycle. Understanding these overarching global trends enables informed observers to fully comprehend the movements and fluctuations in exchange rates, and crucially, empowers them to avoid being misled by promises that are fundamentally unrealistic. The world economy is a colossal, interconnected system, and both the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong are subject to the same set of universal economic laws that govern every other currency on the planet, making their individual stories a reflection of the larger financial world. There is also the significant, often nuanced reality that a currency's current market value is not necessarily an exact, proportional equivalent to the underlying economic strength of the nation. Some nations with highly robust economies may strategically opt for a relatively weaker currency to aggressively support their export industries. Conversely, countries with more fragile economies may prioritize a stronger, more stable currency value to protect the purchasing power and living standards of their citizens. These policy choices are based on specific national priorities. Iraq is currently prioritizing stability to protect the purchasing power of its population, while Vietnam is focused on maintaining a competitive currency value to drive its massive export growth. Both of these strategies are economically sound and valid. When viewers take the time to truly understand the core purpose and strategic intent behind the monetary policies of a government and its central bank, they gain an immediate and clear understanding of why currency rumors, which often promise dramatic, unmanaged changes, so rarely align with the sober reality of executed policy. Finally, we must consider the indispensable role of trust, which is the fundamental and immutable foundation upon which any successful currency must be built. A currency achieves genuine, lasting strength only when the public, the business sector, and the international community place their full trust in the government's competence. The integrity of the banking system, the fairness of its financial regulations, and the certainty of the country's long-term future. Iraq is actively engaged in the arduous, years-long process of fundamentally rebuilding this trust through profound, comprehensive reforms. Vietnam, by contrast, has largely earned and maintained this essential trust through a long track record of consistent, predictable, and high-performing economic management. In 2025 and beyond, trust remains the core, driving force behind the valuation of both the dinar and the dong. If Iraq continues to execute its plans for greater financial transparency, successfully reduces corruption, and reliably modernizes its internal systems, that trust will inevitably grow. If Vietnam continues its powerful economic momentum with sound policy, that trust will remain robust, confirming that currencies ultimately appreciate based on trust and fundamental progress, not on sheer speculation.